Hi, I'm George Huffsmith. I'm pastor at the First Baptist Church of Evansville, Indiana, and glad to have you here and glad to have you have a chance to look at our facility here. First Baptist Church was organized as a church in 1847. In fact, July 4th of 1847. It was organized by a guy named the Reverend Nicholas V. Stedman. He was a missionary to the frontier at that time of Indiana, and he found the church here. It started out with 5 members, but within a year it had grown to over 21 members. And it began having meetings in the Neptune Engine House on 2nd Street between Main and Locust. Later on, they established a Sunday school a few months later after they got started, and then they began to outgrow that. They built their first house of worship at 2nd and Clark Street. The one we're in is our third worship house that the church built. This is made of rough-hewn logs. It was built in 1852 for $3,000. And they worshiped there for quite some time. They met in the basement at first until the upper levels got built and they could worship there. And then they sold the building in 1963 to the city of Evansville to be used as a schoolhouse, and that's when they began to move on. In 1862, for a while, they met in a place called Marble Hall, which was down on Main Street. But in 1867, they built their first brick church house. That was on the corner of 3rd and Cherry. Later, it would become a place where the Jewish congregation would meet and would worship, and was kind of catty corner from where we are now at 4th and Cherry, just down the block and kind of across. That brick building was built for $25,000, and they paid the mortgage off over 25 years, and we're so glad to have it done. And then they constructed this church at 4th and Cherry. The architects were Anderson and Vitek. The cost for the whole thing was just slightly over $100,000, which was a major undertaking in that day and age. It was dedicated March 19th of 1922, and some of the ladies' groups got together, and 10 teams each raised $100 to get things started and make that pledge of $5,000 to get that building going. Renovations have continued over the years, and this particular sanctuary here was renovated in 1991, and they did a lot of reworking of the front area, but also just kind of making things nice and so that they could get around and have more accessibility. And they later would renovate some of the back areas as well. Actually, they renovated the back part of the church in 1953. They had a large basketball area at that time that they later put in offices and classrooms and some of those kind of things. And then, like I said, they renovated this area in 91, and in 2000 they then re-renovated much of that back area. Our organ, which is kind of off to the side over here, that was put in by the Allen Organ Company, and it was one of the early organs where you had an electronic organ that had the sound like it was a pipe organ. So that was kind of an early venture into that. Now there's a lot of digital organs and things that have that. All the glass that you see, the stained glass up in the windows, these are original to the building when it was built in 1921. They were donated by prominent members at the time, and for the most part, if you look down near the bottom, they'll tell you who donated them because they got their name memorialized in each of those. Now, First Baptist Church has planted several churches throughout the area. Forest Hills was planted in 1917, Eastside Baptist, 1921, Eastern Heights, 1959. And First Baptist is known for a couple of things. One was the Agoga Men's Bible Class, which was rather prominent in the Evansville area. It was organized by Frederick Rake, who was the pastor here beginning in 1916. It had its largest one-day attendance of over 506 men that were part of this men's class. They also built the Agoga Tabernacle, which was across the street over where the Deaconess Clinic is now, where they would have high school basketball games and other kind of events to the community. Also, during that period of time, while Dr. Rake was the pastor in 1944, they bought what was then the Walker Welborne Hospital, which then became the Welborne Memorial Baptist Hospital, and they continued to operate that hospital for several years until they relinquished control in about 1971. They bought the hospital for $175,000. I don't know if that's a good price for a hospital or not, but that's the way it went. And the pastor at the time, J. Frederick Rake, was kind of one of the big movers in the community at the time. I mean, this was a mega church before you had mega churches, and he was well known. He had a radio program and did a lot of things in the community. Till he retired, he served here from 1916 to 1952 and remained in the community at that time. So we've had a nice history. We've been involved in the community for a long time, and we continue to be so, but First Baptist is a great place, and I enjoy being here.
How many members do you have, Pastor?
Right now it's about 250 members. Our average worship attendance on Sunday morning is somewhere around 120, 130. A little more on Easter, a little less during the hot summer months as everybody goes away, but in that area.
Very historic place for Evansville, and Welborne Walker Hospital, Walker Welborne Hospital, all those things, the Agoga Tabernacle. I played basketball in the Agoga. Agoga was a very popular place for many people here, right behind here. Thank you very much for giving us this tour today, and thanks for supporting Evansville and everything you do.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jess, and I'm the program coordinator for Spiritual Structures, and I'm here with the Reverend from First Baptist Church in Evansville, Indiana, and we are doing the Open Door Tour, which is a community tour that invites people into the doors of 3 churches to explore our heritage, diversity, and community.
Okay, and Chaplain, Pastor, you have just given an excellent history of this, and how do you think it's going to help our community for people to understand more?
Well, I think there's some great history. There's some wonderful things that's happened in Evansville, and I think sometimes people don't recognize just the gold that's kind of there to be mined right here in our community. It's a great, I appreciate all Jess has done to kind of organize, get us going. I'm hoping we can continue this. Maybe next year have 5 churches or 10 churches, because they've all got a history, and whether you're a religious person or not, it's still an important part of who this community has been and continues to be, and has set the foundation for a wonderful future here in Evansville.
I'm going to finalize this with taking pictures of each window, and important people in Evansville area have donated these windows in this church, and they were some of our founders of our community, and that's how I'm going to end this tour.
Okay.
Thank both of you.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay, bye. Thank you.
I'm Marilyn Klink, and I'm a member of First Baptist Church at 4th and Cherry in Evansville, and I've been a member for over 30 years, and working with the history of the church.
And Marilyn's going to show us some of the photos of what our pastor has just shown us, or just talked about. So we'll start with some of these photographs of the old church here. First one, Marilyn, you can tell us what this photograph is.
This is a drawing from a map of the house of worship that they built in 1852 at the corner of 2nd and Clark Streets. It was made of rough-hewn logs and cost $3,000 to be constructed. They met in the basement for 2 years before they finished the upper level. In 1863, the church sold its building to the city, which used it as a schoolhouse, and then the congregation met in Marble Hall at 19 Main Street for several years until they bought a lot at the corner of 3rd and Cherry and built a Gothic structure there in 1867 at the cost of $25,000.
And that subsequently became what?
It became a Jewish synagogue, and then in later years it was empty and falling down, so it was raised.
About what year?
Oh, it's been about 3-4 years ago.
I see.
Maybe even more. It's hard to remember exactly.
And then your new place of worship is this one?
In 1921, the congregation built 1 block away from their current building at the corner of 4th and Cherry, the current Baptist church, and it had a cost of over $100,000 when it was built.
Okay.
This is a photo of the current building's groundbreaking in 1922.
Okay.
This gymnasium was at the back of the sanctuary in the 1921 building, and a lot of activity went on there. But in 1953, it was converted to 2 stories, with the upper story being the Sunday school rooms, and the lower level being a hallway and the nursery, choir room, and the offices. This is a picture of the congregation in the early 1960s. This was a classroom where the current balcony is, and it was renovated in the 50s.
It was Sunday school class.
Yes. This is a picture of the front of the Agoga Tabernacle, and it was in honor of Reverend Rake. The Agoga was a men's Bible class that became enormous, and at one time was the biggest one in the country, at 506 men on one Sunday. This was the site of many basketball tournaments over the years. This is a photo of the groundbreaking for the Agoga Tabernacle.
About what year was that?
I'm uncertain. I haven't been able to.
Okay, all right.
This is a photo of the Sanctuary Choir in the 1940s, and the choir is still very active today. These photos are of the champions from First Baptist Church in the Women's Basketball League. Apparently it was very big in the 20s, and great competition and entertainment on given nights in a number of communities in the area.
And Hercules was your sponsor. Hercules was made trailers and actually truck chassis and other things. They were a very big company in Henderson and Evansville.
Yeah.
And I guess they were your sponsor. It says 1923 there, but
Yeah.
a tremendously big industry here, owned by the Speck family at one time in the late 60s.